Excerpts from the Book of Zeal. The Dragons. Enfadiel was very different now than it was before the Vespers began their great work. It was no longer the barren round orb it once was. Now mountains, hills, oceans, and lakes covered the landscape. Plants and animals lived on the land, in the water, and in the sky. The Vespers kept themselves busy with maintaining the world and its inhabitants. However, they remained unsatisfied with what they had created. They felt something was missing. The Vespers reconvened once more. Zeal addressed them all.
I've sensed unrest among you. With all that we've accomplished, what is upsetting you now?
Well,
Kinder was the first to weigh in, which did not surprise anyone.
it's not that we aren't happy with what we have done. This world has been reshaped and reformed. We are proud of that work. The plants and animals we've made are diverse. They come in all kinds of shapes and sizes. We are impressed with their progress. The problem is that none of them are like us. We can communicate with them and live among them, but there is just something missing. We can't relate to them in a truly meaningful way. I think we should try to create another life form.
All the Vespers agreed.
I don't understand. Why do you need to make a life form more like us? Why are we not enough to keep each other company?
Zeal questioned. The Vespers considered the question. Lufia stepped forward to answer.
Well, we Vespers have always been, and we've always been together. That's part of the problem. I value and respect each of my kindred. I think we all want a creation that shares our intelligence, but has a different perspective. That might help us break the monotony of our existence.
The Vespers again agreed.
Also, we know that whatever we make will be subject to death, something that is foreign to us. It would be interesting to have someone we can talk to about the concept. We've created this new world, but we don't see it the same way as the plants and animals do. Unfortunately, they aren't capable of explaining their perspectives to us. I think if we create beings with more developed intellects, we could develop a deeper appreciation for this world.
Craig said, adding his thoughts.
We could live vicariously through our new creation.
Lufia mused. Zeal considered the input from the other Vespers.
I see. You raise interesting points. I, too, think it would be nice to gain a new perspective on existence. I have an idea for how we should proceed.
The Vespers drew in closer around Zeal, anxious to hear his idea.
To make the plants and animals, we used ambient mana to bring them to life. That energy did not create life with a comparable consciousness to ours. We need to use the energy like that which comprises us. In some fundamental way, it differs from the rest of the surrounding energy.
Well, where can we get energy like that? We flares have canvassed this world, and such energy does not exist in nature.
He questioned.
You aren't thinking, my friend. We have more than enough energy within us to make a world full of inhabitants. It should only take a tiny portion of our energy to bring new creations to life. They should have a consciousness comparable to our own.
The other Vespers approved of Zeal's proposal, but they did not know how to proceed.
Do we gather the animals back here to modify them again?
Lufia asked.
That would be inefficient.
Zeal replied.
The animals are fine. They may not be everything you desire, but we shouldn't disrupt their lives for this. It's too bad we do not have any molds left.
That's not exactly true.
A Vesper named Dragul spoke up.
I had the Terrans create a group of molds, but I held them back when the others were brought to life.
The revelation surprised the other Vespers. They inquired about his choice.
I cannot say why I held them back. I guess I had a special fondness for them. They deserved something a little extra. I didn't know what. Maybe Zeal's idea is the answer.
Dragul guided the other Vespers to a large cavern. where he stored the remaining moulds. For most of the Vespers, this was the first time they had seen Dragul's hidden work. When creating his designs, Dragul had taken inspiration from the ideas of many of his fellow Vespers. The moulds resembled animals like lizards, snakes, and dinosaurs. They were far larger than lizards and snakes, though. Dragul's creations were even more varied than the dinosaurs. Some moulds represented creatures meant to live on the land like most of the dinosaurs. Others were far different. Several moulds included wings, which would allow the creatures to soar through the skies. Others had more streamlined shapes, made for the creatures to cruise through the seas with ease.
These are magnificent.
Crag marveled at the moulds.
Yes, they are. I remember you saying some of them can even breathe fire. That is an interesting choice.
Blaze said, agreeing with Crag's assessment and recalling a past conversation it had with Dragul.
What are they called?
Zeal asked while he studied them.
I call them the dragons.
Dragul announced with pride.
Let us bring them to life with our mana.
Lufia was ready to see if the dragons could become something more than the other animals. Kinder held reservations.
Are you sure these moulds are the ones we want to make more like us? They look fearsome.
Zeal shook his head.
They won't be like us. We'll give them life in much the same way as we did for the other animals. This time, we'll just impart to them a small amount of our consciousness. They'll be like the animals, but smarter.
The other Vespers agreed. Bringing the dragons to life required more thought than the animals, though. The Vespers did not know the best proportion of normal mana to Vesper mana to use. They experimented as they gave life to the different moulds. As a result, the capabilities of the dragons varied substantially. Some dragons were more bestial in nature. These lesser dragons, like the wyverns and drakes, were only slightly more advanced than other animals. The greater dragons, like the leviathans and stormworms, could express themselves more capably than the plants and animals. They were able to engage in deep conversations with the Vespers about their perspectives on the world. One type of dragon, referred to as the divine dragon, combined many great characteristics from all the other dragons into one form. It also displayed a consciousness and presence that were more like the Vespers than any of the Vespers' other creations. Kinder found it intimidating and considered it to be too much like Vespers. They decided to make it so that only one divine dragon ever existed at any given time. It might have been troublesome for the Vespers if the divine dragons were allowed to breed and multiply in the same way as the others. The dragons delighted the Vespers. The creatures displayed most of the qualities the Vespers sought. The dragons turned out to be the last, best animals the Vespers ever created. Thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe for more tales from Zeal. Also, look out for Birth of the Forever King, the first novel from the world of Zeal. It's coming soon.